Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
We go through the exercise again. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, all right. Allow me to introduce myself to some and reintroduce myself to others. I'm Mitchell Payne. For the past 18 months, I've been serving as the director of the LRR program, Leaders in Residence, which is a flagship program of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement out of New York, headed by Sean Dove. So it's been a real pleasure working with the program, working with the members of the cohort. I just want to say that first. And we're coming together this evening to a closing celebration as of sorts. And it's really been a grace of God that we've been on this journey together. And I think that everybody has gotten half of what I've gotten out of this. Has been a real success. This has been a pilot program, a lot to be learned and a lot to put into going forward from a programmatic standpoint. I want to kick things off by walking through the process that will govern us the rest of the afternoon. First, let me say thanks to Ed Cardis for the Center for Nonprofit Achievement Excellence that a lot of you know has really been a bedrock to me, for me to lean on for the technical aspect as well as his presentation skills and etc. So Ed, again, really appreciative to you and to the center that you represent. Also to Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity, the chapter here in Louisville, who has worked with me since January for substance content going forward and just overall support of this program and our efforts. The program and I do report up through the Vice President's Office for Community Engagement, which is led by Dr. Ralph Fitzpatrick at the University of Louisville. And it's been a real joy. As I've said, I worked with Ralph. I didn't feel like I was working for Ralph. So that's really appreciative when you're involved in relationships like this. We're going to proceed in a manner that I will be passing the baton off to Ed, who will guide us through the technical aspects of this evening, and Ed then will hand off to Ralph, who will be bringing reflections from the University of Louisville, and then Ralph to Sean, who will be doing the same thing from CBMA. Additionally, Sean will have the honor and privilege of introducing our guest speaker of the hour. After that, the question and answer period and a break, and then when we reconvene, I will introduce Dr. Henry Cunningham, who is a member of the leadership staff for the VP for Community Engagement. And in his role with the program, Henry has served as the advisor, as the inspirational leader, as the prayer savant, wearing many hats and getting us where we are with the capstone projects and introducing the cohorts this evening who will be sharing some of their capstone projects with us. So without any further ado, again, I'd just like to reiterate how glad and happy I am to have been a part of this pilot program. And hopefully everyone has gotten a lot as we set our goals 18 months ago out of this in terms of building your skill set to go forward with your endeavors in the arena of nonprofit organizations. So thank you very much. Ed, I'm turning it over to you to guide us through the technical aspects of this evening. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell. And again, thank you all for allowing the Center for Nonprofit Excellence to be a part of this incredibly great work. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to me personally to help in even this small way to advance the goals and purposes of this program. So thank you. All right, with that, I will turn this over to Dr. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, everybody. I bring to you greetings on behalf of our University of Louisville family. Dr. Benaputi is aware, our president is aware that we are convening here this evening. She sent her regards to the fellows and to the community, if you will. We also bring to you greetings on behalf of our Office of Community Engagement, our faculty, our staff, but most importantly, our student body. We're just glad to have been a part of this initiative going forward. Truly, this has been a sharing, what I like to call a sharing, learning experience. Not long ago, when we were approached about engaging in this particular initiative, it didn't take a lot of time, for us to even think about it. We immediately, because of the fact that we want to have an opportunity to work with the Campaign for Black Male Achievement out of New York, Sean Dove and his outstanding team of professionals, along with our local Metro United Way, we immediately jumped on this opportunity to be engaged. And I tell you, folk, there have been no regrets about having joined and being a part of this initiative going forward. I'm excited this afternoon. I'm excited this evening. I've been looking forward to it all day long, to be able to engage and listen to the Reverend Alfonso Wyatt, Dr. Wyatt, I'd like to say is easier for me, Dr. Wyatt, to have him to come into our homes and to share. His bio is impressive, to say the least, and you'll hear more about that in the introduction from our leader, in this case, Sean Dove, momentarily. But I'm equally excited about hearing from our fellows. Those individuals who they've hung in there, they've been diligent and passionate about the work. And we're going to hear from them this afternoon. We're going to hear, I believe, from 3 this evening and 3 tomorrow evening in terms of showcasing the information that they've gleaned and sharing with us about their experiences back home in their respective communities going forward. So, fellows, I'm excited about that. It's now my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Sean Dove, the Executive President, CEO of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Sean has been a true friend, partner with us in this initiative going forward. And I say that I can't celebrate enough this brother and the work of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement in terms of what they're doing in support of our youth, and particularly our young African-American males. So with that, Sean, I'm going to give it over to you, my friend, but thank you for being there with us over this journey that we've encountered over the last 18 months. Sean Dove.
Thank you, Dr. Fitzpatrick, otherwise known as Ralph, and I just had this is symbolic. I want to let Aniel know that the storm is coming your way. I'm in my studio office and I'm next to the window, and I just saw my deck umbrella and table flying by, and I had to run down and gather the troops to get it. And that has been emblematic of just really being nimble and just a reflection on just the beauty and the growth and the learning that the Leaders in Residence Fellowship has brought us. Nothing happens without partnership. And so, I want to lift up our University of Louisville partners, and obviously Ralph Fitzpatrick, Mitchell Payne and Susan Jenkins, Dr. Henry Cunningham, and we also heard from Ed Cordes, who is also a partner here, and nothing happens by itself. I also want to lift up and say thank you to the partners in Louisville, Metro United Way. Also want to lift up our funder, Dorian Burton at Keenan Charitable Trust, who had a vision for bringing these two organizations together, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement and the University of Louisville together to pilot this fellowship. And I can't go any further without just, you know, when I think of the University of Louisville, we deemed Louisville the epicenter of Black male achievement almost a decade ago when we had our first Rumble Young Man Rumble gathering at the Muhammad Ali Center. And just wanted to take a moment to lift up all the intergenerational leaders, men and women on the ground in Louisville who are right now in the midst of a most serious fight for justice, accountability, and responding to the murder of Breonna Taylor. And, you know, we are on the screens right now, but there are folks that are still organizing and fighting for justice. And I know University of Louisville team that it's you know, been a lot in the epicenter, and I wanted just to lift them up. And I also wanted to give thanks to some CBMA staff that are not here, no longer with us, that really helped to ignite the LIR, folks like Steve Vassar, Wes Tolbert, Dr. Phyllis Hubbard, the body whisperer who has infused health and healing strategies into everything that the Campaign for Black Male Achievement does. I want to lift up Chief of Staff who has helped to organize and orchestrate these calls. And, you know, I just think that what we're about to see and what we're about to hear is really, you know, epitomizes the ethos of the CBMA you know, mantra of love, learn, and lead. And it brings me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker tonight, who will be bringing us a word, some insights on making sure that leadership is a blessing and not a burden. I have known Alfonso Wyatt, who has many names: Fonzo, Uncle Alfonso. There are a couple that we won't disclose here that we'll keep just between the two of us. But he is really a Renaissance man. He's a poet. He is a pastor. He is the associate pastor at Allen AME Cathedral in Southeast Queens. He is also a former philanthropy professional. He is also a youth development guru and mental ninja, right? And if you want more to learn more about that, he will tell you that. But he's also a supreme storyteller, organizational development consultant. And I've known Alfonso for more than 30 years. He has been a mentor, a friend, a brother, and he has been personally my Bundini Brown in my corner, encouraging me and egging me on and telling me to rumble, young man, rumble. But I know that it's just not for me. He has mentored two generations of leaders, and that there are so many folks across the country that can tell in Alfonso Wyatt a story when he encouraged them when they were ready to quit. He is also the founder of Strategic Destiny, his consulting firm, and they exist to design futures through faith and facts and national public. He's also a national public theologian, right? So I'm going to stop there. I'm almost going to stop because the list goes on and on. You can Google my brother, but I said that he is a author. Did I say that he's an author? And one of the books, I have a few of his books in my studio here. This is his latest book, Beware the Mind Hustler, right? That's the kind of stuff he be dropping. Identifying self-destructive thoughts and distractions. And he is the ultimate encourager. And before I turn over the screen and the mic to my brother Alfonso Wyatt, I just wanted to read a couple of lines from his most recent book where he has encouraged someone. And did I mention that he was a poet? I did mention that. Okay. And here's a short poem that I want to just end the introduction with. And it goes like this. The heart of it. Find strength in your weakest moments. Let the armor of self be stripped. Expose the warrior, no longer weary of the coming engagement. Combatant, raise your eyes, strike the telling blow. Shout death to fear. And I want to introduce my brother. Whenever I'm rolling with him, I am feeling more encouragement and less fearful. And so I want to introduce Alfonso Wyatt, encourage folks to use the chat box and all the other reactions that you can use, that this is a call and response endeavor. So my brother, Alfonso Wyatt.
I'm sure somebody in here said, thank goodness we finally finished. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I've been to be a part of this particular gathering, a gathering of leaders, a gathering of bright lights, a gathering of people who have heeded the call to go out and to do for others. I want to thank CBMA. I want to thank Valerie Merritt. I want to thank all who are here and everybody from the Louisville. Didn't I say it right? I said it right. I said it like I've been there. We can always tell anybody that's calling it Louisville, you know, you better get them a ticket out of town. I want to thank Dr. Fitzpatrick. I want to thank Brother Cordes. I want to thank all who are responsible for getting me here and for the mentors. And I think I know at least, I think I know 4 of you in the group. So I'm looking forward to hearing. And for those who I've invited, if you want to stay on to hear the capstone presentations, which I hope you do if you can, please do that. And this is an opportunity for you not to have any responsibilities. I invited leaders. I see my son down there, Eddie Silverio, who was in my youth program when he was 14 years old. Oh, Lord have mercy. I could just stay with him and tell a story about the gift of leadership. But let me just jump right in. And to the fellows, I'm here for you. I'm gonna put when I finish, I'm gonna put my email address in the chat box. If you need me, call me. That's the way I roll. We don't stand on protocol, tradition, how long or how short I've known you. We are family. I'm talking to leaders. Let's go. So what I'm going to do is just hit some points, and then we open it up for questions. I'm on the clock, so I got to get moving. One great way for leaders not to burn out or not to turn something into a burden, turn their term into a burden, is to share the weight. I'm not talking to Lone Ranger leaders. I'm not talking to ones that believe that they are the only ones that can get the job done. I'm not talking to people that are witnesses, a crowd of witnesses watching them kill themselves. If you don't want leadership to become a burden, then you must delegate. I want to talk from a passage of one of my books, Leadership by Numbers for God's People Who Count. I want to talk about effective delegation. The first thing that you got to do is that you got to recognize your go-to people. You got to recognize the people that you can give assignments to, that you can ill afford to have it fall between the cracks. Are you with me? I'm just going right down the list. Do not use delegation as a way to test a person's loyalty or ability, or worse, to set a person up. I know we don't have any setup artists here, but there are some people that play kind of leadership games. Help people grow by delegating assignments that have a high probability of being successfully completed. This is what we have to do. And know the people you have to check up on before delegating. And establish a reconnect time before the task is to complete it. Some people you got to meet with. Or can I get somebody to snap that? Can I get somebody to clap that? Can I get somebody that understands that? Some people you got to check up on. Reserve tasks for yourself that can only be completed by you. Everything else, delegate. Celebrate success and learn from failure. And always evaluate the process after the task is completed. And give praise in public and individual correction in private. That's the art of delegation. I'm moving on down. I got 7. I always had 7 points. That's my number. Number 2, be careful not to become the very thing you are trying to change. All right, now, we're getting a little subtle now. We have to be careful handling issues and concerns because sometimes it is possible for the very thing that you want to push away becomes the very thing that embraces and takes control of you. Let's look at hate. A lot of that going around. I want to fight hate, but I don't want to become hate. I don't want to become something that is, I believe, alien to me and to my spirit. But if one is not careful, they can become what they're trying to push away or disassemble. Be very careful about that. Number 3, operate from the premise that leadership is a privilege and not a right. I don't know if you've worked for people who feel that they have been anointed, that they in some way have been put in a position where it's about them 24/7, 360 degrees. Being a leader is a privilege. It's a privilege to lead. But if you treat it like a right, it becomes a dictatorial process. And as long as I've been a leader, I've never chose to motivate through fear. If I got to tell you every 5 seconds you're going to lose your job, you should quit. A person should work with their gifts and their talents and their understanding because we're all here for different reasons, but somebody is here because somebody opened up a door for you and you are now in position to open up a door for somebody else. I'm going to move from there, but I could really stay there. Number 4, never fear asking yourself the question, is it really me? Before you go on a hunt campaign, looking for malefactors and looking for evildoers, looking for those who perhaps have crossed the line that you think is too much, I want you to ask yourself, is it really me? Is it really me that's projecting something because something was projected on me? Is it really me that's hurting because I've been hurt? Let me tell you that you've got to ask yourself the question. You could be the one that's pulling the strings and don't even realize it. Don't be afraid of that question. And I'm going to give you a little parallel to it. When I was coming up in and growing up, something dropped in my spirit that I still advocate. And it was just this clear as I'm going to tell you, if the lightning and thunder allows me. Never allow your personal smallness to get in the way of your spiritual greatness. If you got that, snap that. If you understand that, clap that.
Yeah, you got to say that one again.
Never allow personal smallness. And let me just say this. Everybody in these little boxes got it. We all have personal smallness. We all have issues. We all got something. We all got a thing about us. We all got an it that gets in the way. I get very nervous around perfect people. I get very nervous about folk who all their I's is dotted, all their T's is crossed. And now all they got time to do is look at other people's I's and T's. Let me tell you something, we all have personal smallness. So when I say don't let your personal smallness get in the way of your spiritual greatness, you also have spiritual greatness inside of you. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about belief systems. I'm talking about the power to be the best you that shows up and shows out. Don't let the little you block the greater you. You got that, Brother Sean? I can move on? Okay. When I took geometry, and I got to confess, I took geometry in summer school in the 10th grade. I couldn't get a handle on the angles. I just couldn't. I was off on a tangent. Dr. Alston can pick up on that. But one of the postulates, one of the things that I did understand, that the whole is equal to the sum of its parts. Have you heard that? Well, as a leader, Brother Darrell, I began to see things that defied the postulate. I started seeing when people were on one accord, when people were clear that the whole can become greater than the sum of its parts. And it can become greater than the sum of its parts by this little story I'm going to tell you. Sean said I like to tell stories, and I do. There are some people who know how to make work work. There are some people who know how to make work work, and then there's some other people who know how to make work work. Did y'all catch that? I don't know who works for you, but there's some that show up, that they do what they're supposed to do. I tell people, if you cash the check, do the work. Don't come to me talking to me about, and I'm very easygoing, I might add, but you can't cash the check and not do the work. I think the government or somebody would be looking for you. I'm not calling you a fraud, but what I'm saying is that if you got a complaint and it is of a level that impacts your personhood, your sense of decency and work, come to me. Now, I know they don't give out checks no more. This is an old metaphor. But come to me with the check, tear it up, throw it in the garbage can, and you'll have my undivided attention. Some people want to slack on the work, but cash. Make work work. Make it work by coming through. Make it work and by leading. And I'm talking now about the two organizations that you leaders are involved in. Now somebody is saying he don't know how to count. Where did they get this speaker from, Dr. Fitzpatrick? He don't even know how to count. Oh, you got at the very least, two organizations that you run. It's the organization you're running and the organization you think you run. And there is a gap. The workers know one organization, you know another organization. I say that if you don't want your organization to become a burden, then you are going to have to make sure that you're speaking to, that you are leading the right organization. Not one that you think you run, but the one you actually run. And the closer you can bring those two polarities together, the lighter the lift. Number 6, I got one more after this. Hold the tension, leaders. Hold the tension of the vision while not giving in to division. I got a little lyrical on you right there. Hold the tension of the vision while not giving into division. There is something about being a leader. And you know that there's some folk who are contrary. There's some folk that want to get with the program and make work work. But we cannot allow the vision to suffer division. And once it suffers division, it gets blurry. And we don't really understand, and our instincts are off. We may know how to lead, but now we're kind of struggling. I don't know if any of you will admit to struggling, but have you ever struggled as a leader? I'm gonna raise my hand. Maybe that'll give some folks some confidence. Let me say that struggle is real, but I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you a change formula, and it appears in the book, The Fifth Discipline by Peter Singer. The letter D, dissatisfaction, times V, vision, times F, first steps must be greater than resistance. Dissatisfaction times vision times first steps must be greater than resistance. If it is not greater than resistance, then leadership, then the organization becomes burdensome. We're pulling, but we're not getting anywhere. We're sending out memos, but we're not getting anywhere. We're having strategic plans, but we're not getting anywhere. Dissatisfaction with the present state, a vision for the future state. First steps, you gotta get moving on it. That little sign that's greater, that look like a little arrowhead, has to be greater than resistance. You will always, always come up with resistance. Anytime you speak change, the resistance springs up. The PhDs of negativity come out of the woodwork, and they can tell you what can happen, what we tried to do, what did not happen. I used to be mad at the PhDs of negativity until one day in my spirit, I'm back over there. It said, no, don't be mad at them. They do have a gift of analysis. Your job is to help them stop looking at what can't happen and give you an analysis of what can happen, what should happen. Convert your PhDs of negativity and lighten the burden that's on your back, the headache that you go home with. And speaking, I'm getting nervous. And here is my last story. I'm right on time, Sean. I've been to just about every state in the United States. You name it, I've been to big towns, big cities, mid-sized, small. I've been to places, rural places, they had one light. I went to one place, had one light, and the light wasn't working, slowed everything down. But one day I got a call to go to Nebraska, corn country. I said, now, wait a minute. They said, well, Reverend, fly into Omaha, rent a car, and drive a little bit outside of Lincoln. I do all of that. I'm in the car. I'm going. There is no speed limit in Nebraska. They got a speed limit sign with a question mark on it. Whatever your little car can do it. So I was shoveling it. And then after driving, Doc, I'm like, wait a minute, I never saw another car come in the opposite direction. I'm between two hedges, row hedges of corn. I can't even see over it. And then my imagination, has your imagination ever just started jumping in and working? My imagination, as you can probably tell, I have a very, very still active imagination. I started to think that I'm going to crash into the cornfield. And Malachi, y'all remember Malachi? Y'all remember Children of the Corn? Yeah. I thought Malachi was going to come and get me. And then I was just entertaining myself. But then again, another entry into the spirit. I heard this, and I want to pass this on to you. You can learn a lot from evil. That's what the voice said. I said, no, I don't want to talk to you. He said, no, check this out. Evil never fights evil when it comes to doing evil. Evil will get with evil. Evil will collude with evil. Evil will sow into evil. We're witnessing a lot of that these days. But look at good. Good will fight good when it comes to doing good. Good will argue with good. Good will tear good apart. If your good doesn't look like my good, but it is still good, then somebody wants to stop my good. Somebody want to jam up my good. Somebody wants to question my good. Well, I have a good that is shaped in this milieu. I have a good that has been metricized and has been processed. Let me tell you, good should never fight good when it comes to doing good. And just because your good does not look like my good, it's still good. And let me take you home with this. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of your family. Never let it be said that the shoemaker's children have the worst shoes in town. You want to feel a burden? Lose your family. You've been saving other people's children, but you lose your own. That's a burden that is very hard to bear. And it's one of the hardest calls I get from my mentees. Alfonso, I need help. Take care of home first. I close with a poem, not the one that Sean read, but one that I want to dedicate to all of the leaders. The title of it is The Enlightenment. I wrote it back in the 80s when I was searching, when I was trying to find the real me and got tired of entertaining the fake me. Children of the light, heed this urgent call. Use thine power over darkness. Stumble, never fall. Illume dark corners in all hearts and minds. Share this precious flame, the tie that binds. Hatred is thine enemy, and ignorance another foe. So band together small flames wherever ye may go. There is strength in number. Remember ye are light, and every flicker is a wound to darkness. This our eternal fight. Deuces. Love,
Learn, lead.
Take that to the bank.
As always, thank you, Alfonso, for doing what you do and the way that you do it. We are going to take Ed 10 minutes for some Q&A insights, a little call and response. And folks have the ability to take their own mics off of mute, or do you have to do that?
We can do it.
Okay. Oh, so Valerie just demonstrated that we got the power. So we're going to open it up for a Q&A and see how that works. Any questions, insights, call and response for the keynote speaker?
Dr. Austin, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wyatt, for some nourishing words. So part of leadership is making the tough call, right? And I'm wondering what kind of formula, process do you make when you know in the past you've had to make tough calls where you knew at the end of the day it's the right call, but the ramifications for people impacted by the call that are negative? Like, how do you say, look, this is a tough call, but I'm making it?
I think that's what you do. Is what you just said. You let people know that this is a tough call. The part of leadership that is the hardest part, or one of the harder parts, is doing exactly what you said. First of all, you, meaning collective you, need to be clear why you're making the call. And to get the language together in your own head. Sometimes there's things that, well, I won't call it a trick per se, but sometimes you let some people know what's going down. And you could either get counsel from them, or sometimes they're going to go and tell other people. There are very few secrets in organizations. Very few. So if you're operating from a secret mode and the secret is already out. I worked as a family therapist. And one of the things that I took away from there, you make the covert overt. A leader must make the covert overt. It may seem like a secret, but the people in the other organization, the one that is actually the organization and not the one you think you run, they may already know or already heard whispers. Grab the truth, promote the truth, keep an open door policy if it impacts people, and move on. Somebody else, I only have 8 minutes now. I want to see if I can get 6 questions in 8 minutes.
Dr. Wyatt, this is Val. I'm going to pose this question. What would you tell a younger version of yourself to prepare that person to be a leader?
Nobody's ever asked that question.
That's why I'm me.
I remember at 24, I was named to run a high school. I was a teacher in the high school. And, well, long story short, I became the head. We didn't call it principal, but I was the coordinator at 24. It's probably too young, but that's another story. One of the teachers there, she was a few years older than me, told me that you have it. You have the ability to do it. But like any garment, you got some loose threads. And you know, the way she said that, I got it. Some leaders have loose threads. But if they feel that anybody who brings the fact that they have loose threads, that they are a hater, a traitor, insubordinate, you cannot run an organization, especially when it comes to scale or size. I wish I had more confidence then. There were things that I found out. I found out the whole field of organizational development. And while I'm happy I went to Howard University, I told my dear brother over there, Brother Payne, that I was at HU. They didn't have organizational development. In fact, it didn't become a subject area until the late 60s, early 70s. I would say try new things. Don't be afraid. And don't think you're lucky. Know that you're smart. That was a confession.
That's good.
That was a
All
good
right.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, Carolyn.
Hi. My name is Carolyn Bryant, and I'm an assistant principal at a K-8 school in Lakeland, Florida. And as we're preparing to go back to school, one of my questions that's been posed to me is, how do you motivate yourself when you look at all the obstacles and the challenges that you face as a leader? How do you keep yourself motivated, knowing that you have to be the example for your team?
You got to do what refuels you. A lot of times, especially giving people usually give to others and they pass themselves. I wish cars got that little thing that lets you know when you're running out of fuel.
Yeah.
It's amber, it beeps. If you have a very expensive automobile, it may talk to you. I wish that our spirit came with an indicator that would let us know when we are functioning on fumes. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how smart you are. We were not designed to consistently function on fumes. Somebody, you got to refuel yourself. You got to retool yourself. And you know what? There comes a time, I'm so glad I got to the point that when I'm talking a city metaphor, when it hit the sidewalk, shut it down. You can't think about this all the time. Some of your family members got masters in social work just hearing about problems at work from you. Dial in another station, read a book, talk to some other people. I see you, Diane. Talk to some other people and see what happens. It is going to, there is no easy pass lane. There is no quick way out of where we are. And it's going to take leadership. And that's why this subject was so important, that it not become a burden, that it is an opportunity. The Harvard Business School uses case study method, opportunities and threats. How do you keep your opportunities? How do you recognize the threats? But the next step is, how do you turn threats into opportunity? That's the next level of leadership. Somebody else. Brother Poindexter.
Hello, Doctor.
How you doing?
Pleasure to see my good big brother prophet again and hear you. Thank you so much for this wisdom that has fallen like manna from heaven. My question is a bit complex. What do you do as a leader? Well, it's kind of two-part. What do you do as a leader when it feels like you are under attack? When it feels like everything is going wrong? They're coming at you with the budget, then this person is coming at you with this, and then this is on top of you, and it just feels like you're under attack, you know? And then the second part is, how do you match spiritual wisdom and intellectual content in such a way that it's effective?
I'm going to answer the second one first. That's where I live, son. What I'm telling you, never allow your personal smallness to get in the way of your spiritual greatness. I am a public theologian. I am one that talks about how to build the practical and the abstract, how to bring those qualities together, how to let your inner light shine. I don't want to force people to follow me. I want people who want to follow me because they believe in the mission, not so much in me, but in the mission. And yeah, you're gonna be attacked. Now, if you're being attacked and you opened the door and left yourself attackable, you can't be mad at being attacked. The best thing you can do is do something to shore up your defenses, to respond to the critique. But if you personalize it, you're gonna miss out on it. Because all you're going to do is create more enemies. You ever seen The Caine Mutiny? That movie?
What?
The Caine Mutiny. If you haven't seen it, Humphrey Bogart came out in the 50s. I know it doesn't have any sci-fi or any kind of thing, but get it and look at it. I hope that was helpful.
That was excellent. Thank you.
2 more, and then I'm turning it over.
Reverend Wyatt, I believe Diane Mack has had her hand up.
Well, Diane Mack is one of my daughters who was in the Valley, Sean, who's now working on getting her PhD, master's, Doc DSW. So I'm very happy that she's here. Yes, daughter.
Hello, Father. I am, one of the points that you brought up is that leadership is a privilege, right? And whether it's nature or nurture, one of the things that I'm particularly interested in and follow is kind leadership. So many times people lead from a position of fear or anger or domination. What are some of your thoughts or feedback around the concept of kind leadership?
Well, you could call it kind. You know, a lot of times people get, you know, you're either a shark or you're tuna fish, you know, as a leader. And maybe I'm tuna fish. But what I'm saying is that you have to lead out of the construct of your personality. And you have to be careful. And that's why I said, ask the question, is it really me? You have to be careful that you're not leading out of your pain or leading out of some unresolved stuff or want to make followers as opposed to shaping leaders. A leader that is not planting seeds of leadership for others is just taking up space. I think I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank all of you. Brother Mayo, is that you? I'm going to end on you. I respect this brother. Not because he has the same first name as me, spelled different, but the same first name. I respect him because he did not forget. I'll follow an inspirational leader. Now, it can't just be all inspiration. I had to learn as a visionary leader, I didn't need to hire somebody right under me that was visionary also. Because all we would ever talk about is vision. I needed an implementer. I needed somebody that knew how to implement the vision. This brother implemented the vision. I tell people, take what was designed to destroy you and you destroy it. Brother Mayo, I take my hat off to you, son. That young man that you presented at the Rumble, the one I lifted the offering for. Yeah. Sometimes managers do things right, but leaders do the right thing. I called up everybody with a young man that came out of his program that had challenges and got a garbage can and said, if you felt what I felt, come up here and help this young man out. Can't do that everywhere, but you certainly can do it at the Rumble because that's what we came for. So I want to thank you. I'm hoping if I hear your capstone, if not, I'm going to put my address, my email in the chat box, and we go from there. Love you all. I love each and every one of you for what you do, how you do it, and for the greatness that's already inside of you. Judy, I see you over there, girl. I turn it over. I turn the mic over.
Thank you very much, Reverend Wyatt. Inspirational words of encouragement as well as self-action. We're going to now break. I'm going to turn it over to Ed to turn his timer on. Going to give us about 5 minutes and we'll reconvene. Thank you again very much. Okay, we're going to resume. Let me introduce to everyone Dr. Henry Cunningham, a member of the leadership group with the Office of the Vice President for Community Engagement, who has just had his book published. So Henry, make sure you put in a plug for your book so you'll let everybody know the title, what it's about, and where they can find it. But Henry's with us this evening in his role as advisor, faculty, mentor to the cohort members, guiding them through the process of the development and presentation of their capstone projects. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn the stage over to Dr. Cunningham, and he'll tell us how he's going to lead things the rest of the afternoon. Thank you, Henry.
Okay, thank you, sir. And a pleasant good evening to everyone. It is very nice to be here in your midst and to lead you through the second part of tonight's gathering. The second part will be geared towards the capstone presentations that from our fellows. We have 3 presentations tonight from our fellows. The fellows over the past few months have been working on various projects based on their interests and what would be beneficial to them and their respective organizations. Some people chose to work on a research project that is to study a particular issue as it relates to blackmails and to better understand what that issue might be. Others chose to work on a symposium presentation. We partnered with the Council for Post-Secondary Education, which is the body that governs all higher education institutions in Kentucky, for 2 symposiums, one in the fall that looks at education equity, particularly as it relates to minority and African Americans. And unfortunately, the symposium for the spring had to be canceled because of the pandemic. And so our fellows will be presenting what was supposed to have been the presentation during the spring semester. We have those who have chosen to work in organizational development. That is some kind of project that would enhance their respective organizations, whatever it may be. Some people look at infrastructural development, looking at other issues, challenges that they may be facing, and see how they can enhance the work within their respective organization with some sort of such a project. And then lastly, we have those who chose to work on a manuscript, and that is some kind of manuscript they would like to publish at some point in time in an academic journal. That is something that we also were trying to work with the fellows on that as well. these projects were chosen based on people's interests and also what they think would be beneficial to them both personally and professionally. The capstone presentation is not just for these fellows to share their work, but also for us to learn from them. They bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we think there are many lessons that we can learn from them. So therefore, the presentations is for us to learn what these fellows have gathered over the years and what they have been doing. There'll be 3 presentations tonight. They'll be about 15 minutes long, more or less. If they go over a few minutes, that's quite okay. If they finish a few minutes earlier, that is quite okay as well. Following each presentation, we will have time for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, you can either write them down in the chat room, or at the end, raise your hand, and Ed will monitor and try to figure out who's asking the questions so we can get those questions asked. The first to present will be Darrell Johnson, and he will introduce himself. Secondly, we have Alfonso Mayo, and then thirdly, but at last, we have Judy Touzin, who will do her presentation. Each person will introduce themselves, and then they will begin their presentation. So, Mr. Johnson, I will now turn over to you, sir, to introduce yourself and go on with your presentations.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, okay, so first of all, Reverend Wyatt, that was wonderful. Thank you for allowing us the pleasure of your company tonight. I am definitely going to be looking into hearing more and reaching out just to see if we can connect on another level, because you have a lot of knowledge that I can definitely use. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I want to thank, just the cohort, the individuals that I had the opportunity to join with this journey. I've learned a lot. The Campaign for Black Male Achievement, thank you. University of Louisville, Kentucky, the Metro United Way, thank you for just bringing this thing together, because I've learned a lot. And the capstone that I've worked on is actually a research project that I intend to continue doing some work on. So it was just a catalyst to get me started on something that I was already interested in. Sean Dove, I'd met you a long time ago working with Boys Town, and you gave me some inkling that there was something that you were starting to work on, and I never thought that it would manifest itself into this. And thank you for just allowing me to meet some of these individuals that I had the opportunity to meet while being in this leaders in residency. So Dr. Fitzpatrick, Dr. Cunningham, Uncle Mitchell, it was a great ride, guys. So thank you for being a part of that with us. So I'm going to get started. I worked with a nonprofit agency before about, I guess it may have been 10, 15 years ago. It was called United Against Human Trafficking. And I worked predominantly with boys of color. They were 12 to 17 years old. And as we talked about what human trafficking was, and then, why that happened and why the criminals of human trafficking were mostly males, we wound up speaking on what masculinity was. We wound up seeing there was some tie-in in regard to what control is. And if anybody knows anything about human trafficking, it's about control, and it's about what these individuals will think and why they will think what they think. In my years after teaching that class, it was a class in boys prevention that I taught with United Against Human Trafficking, I realized that control in human trafficking kind of lended itself to specifically Black males' upbringing, and the idea of mind manipulation, and the ideas of Black boys being denied to become their authentic self, and in a world where we learn early on that strength is honored, that stoicism is honored, that athleticism, anything that says male or anything that is remotely macho is the things that we learn about early on, and we learn to revere and look at that as something that we should ascribe to. So my thesis or my paper is about the relationship between the two. So Black males and basic human rights. So if we go to slide 2. So I started out with a bold statement on purpose, with the statement that young Black males are stripped of some of their most basic rights at age 10. And this is about us hearing things that we are not supposed to do, that actually comes to us very naturally, but we're told not to do that, not to feel that by people that we love really deeply. So what it does is it renders our brains, it makes us feel that we can't be all that we can be, or it makes it hard for us to find out who that is. Once we're told something so final, in regard to colors, light colors being for girls and dark colors being for boys, and toys that are for girls and toys that are for boys, and just things that show signs of weakness and things that show signs of strength, it really molds our minds into a non-healthy place in regard to who we are and who we can be. It's just not a healthy place to begin one's journey into becoming all that we can be. We can go to slide 3. And so again, purposely, I started the my paper with that bold statement that, we're Black males are denied or rights are taken from us, human rights at age 10. And even though, the crime of human trafficking, it's heinous, and that's the actual act of selling people for a profit. Even though it's not the same as something like that, I thought that what I would do, or what I did do, was just look at the methods of manipulation experienced by human trafficking victims, deprived of several freedoms, moving, speech. In regard to Black boys, we are denied the mechanisms of what we truly feel, or the actual being able to feel at all. And then the other similarity is the fact that usually individuals who are involved in human trafficking, whether it's sexual human trafficking, guns, domestic servitude, it's trickled down. Individuals who do it, they teach someone else how to do it, and so it's one of those things that becomes, let's say, a family business. And it's similar to that of Black families who continue the mind manipulation in regard to how we teach our boys, what is masculine, what is feminine, and how we're supposed to be. And not only do we teach that, we sometimes make individuals who don't fit into that mold feel bad about who they are. We can go to the next one. So then in the paper, I also look at the variation of the Black male family in regard to strength. So yes, we do foster the idea that as a male, we're supposed to be stronger than not only Black males, but all males. We're just supposed to be really, really strong. But it's odd that we teach our girls the same way, but we nurture our daughters in a different design of devotion. So we allow that room and we allow that space for Black little girls to still be demure and soft, but still be strong. Actually, in some cases, it's applauded when girls are dominant and they're strong. So we don't look at it in the same way as we do if little boys are soft. We look at them with a little more disdain, with disdain, as opposed to a girl who's raised to be strong. And then also girls in that situation don't have the same problem of acclimating themselves. Once a girl is at an age of middle school, as she grows up, she doesn't feel that need to compete with, individuals, her counterparts, whether white or otherwise. There's not that need to be the strongest. There's not that need to feel that you're always in competition as well as boys do. We'll go to the next one. And so I go even further in the paper to discuss how the family trickles down this generational curse, and how once boys become to get to a certain age, it manifests itself in a state of confusion. And then a lot of times these boys or these young Black men become very unsure, untrusting. They have trouble in romantic relationships, just speaking to one another. It's always a sense of competition that when you were taught these lies early on, it's hard to not only manifest your true self, but it's hard to know how to trust individuals to open up and speak about what you are truly feeling. So again, it's a competition with your counterparts. You have trouble with romantic relationships, and you definitely have trouble speaking about mental health as a whole. Next slide. And then, let's see. So because of these unwarranted beliefs, which can often lead to negative feelings around intimacy, Black boys often become confused and complicated Black men, ill-equipped to navigate the world where what is expected of them is not clearly defined. So again, we find ourselves in a situation as Black men, confused about who we are and how we are supposed to be who we are. So, you know, it's not uncommon for a young boy at age 10 to have parents have conversations with him about not being cute anymore. This is right around the time that society at large just sees you as more than just a little boy. After 10 years old, you become something else. 13 years old, you are taught lessons in being a threat. At this point, you're not a little boy, you're not a grown man, but you're in that middle age that, you know, we have conversations with our sons, our boys about, you know, what they should do, how their hand should always be seen. So we're giving them these signals that you're looked at as a threat. By age 20, you know, once we become into that young man state, we know that we have to be extra polite. We know that we have to be extra accommodating. We know that we have to be extra just to be seen as safe. And again, at 30, you know, we're pretty emotionally unavailable in regard to romantic relationships, in regard to personal relationships, because we weren't able to develop that part of ourselves. So it's hard to give a part of that self to someone that we don't really know who that is. So I went on into my paper to talk about what code switching was. And I compared and contrasted code switching to what Black males have to do. And it's almost like a person switching, because it's one thing to go into an office space or a space that you want individuals to feel comfortable. So you change your dialect or your way of speaking to make people feel comfortable. But in regard to a Black male growing up, it's almost like you have to come out of yourself. Like you have to become a different person to feel welcomed in many of our arena. Whether it be work, whether it be socially, we find it difficult just to be ourselves or to even define exactly what that is. Next slide. I think it's one more slide. Wait, I think that was the last one. Is that 6? That was it.
I believe it's the last one, Darrell.
That was the last one. Yep, that was the last one. And so, yeah, so again, my paper is about the compare and the contrast of manipulating mind. So I use something as heinous as human trafficking to speak on what happens to young Black males early on in their development and how that manages to affect who they are as people in the world that we live in. So that's mine, Black males and basic human rights. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Darrell. Wonderful presentation. Thank you, very, very much so. At this time, we open up the questions. So if you have any questions for Darrell, this is your time to ask those questions, please.
I have a quick question. Do you feel that it's more...
Dr. Cunningham, this is Ralph. Darrell, question for you.
Wait, I think,
several years ago,
I think Judy was just...
I heard Dr. Kawanza Kanjuka, a noted educator out of Chicago. Many of you, I'm sure.
Judy was asking a question. So you're next in the queue. Can you hear me, Ralph?
Okay.
You can't hear?
I think you froze, Sean.
Okay.
Am I up?
No, you're up after Judy.
Mine was just real quick. Do you find that, because it sounds like
should I try again?
About...
No, Dr. Fitzpatrick. Judy's going to go now, and you'll go after Judy.
Really quick. it sounds like a lot of it's around like this toxic masculinity, but how that shows up. Do you find that it's more negative or more impactful for Black boys versus white boys or other boys of other races and demographics? And if so, what do you attribute that to?
I think I definitely think it's that it's a toxic masculinity that is encouraged and is taught to all boys, but I believe in boys of color, and that would be everybody but white males are taught in a different space, because from what I've read and from what I've researched and experienced, Black boys of color come from a different space, and they come from a different idea of competing. So I think that they feel like their masculinity needs to be shown more. I feel like boys of color need to have it. They need to wear it in a way that white boys don't have to wear theirs to come into a room and to feel on the same playing field. So I definitely feel like it's encouraged in boys of color more.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Fitzpatrick, your turn. Go ahead.
I'll try again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Darrell, several years ago, I heard Dr. Kwanzaa Njufo out of Chicago, Illinois, state a proposition that I thought was interesting, to say the least. The proposition that he stated was that because so many of our young African-American males are reared in single-parent heads of household, namely with the mother, that his research would suggest that mothers tend to rear their daughters and love their Black sons. My question to you is, does this support your research in terms of the development of African-American males for the most part? Your comments.
Absolutely. And so one of the research areas that I looked in was a scholarly journal, and it was called Playing in the Gender Transgression Zone. And so the research was done specifically by Black mothers, and the individual that you spoke of, they weren't mentioned, but that whole idea was studied. So the idea that specifically Black mothers they raise their Black daughters and they nurture their Black sons was definitely discussed. And I think it's systematic in the way that they saw their parents raise their male relatives. So in regard to them doing it differently, the research showed that even though they thought what they were doing was trying to prepare their young Black males for the world, they did just the opposite. And so they did a better job at raising the Black girls. So that's exactly where I took the quote from, because the Black girls tested, they tended to be more assertive. They gravitated toward one another, despite age differences. In addition, racial connections allow girls in their peer groups to foster and reinforce their assertiveness. Yet they were nurturing. So it didn't matter whether they were in their peer groups with girls of color or girls of non-color. What they found with the girls was that they created cliques that supported a culture of femininity. So I think, again, the individual that you spoke of, that was reinforced in Playing with Gender, that the idea that the women had was that they would do things differently, but because they were ill-equipped exactly on how to do that, they wound up doing just the opposite, that they were nurturing the sons and raising the daughters.
There is a question from Elizabeth Santos in the chat room, and it says, what is the hope of Black boys ever recovering themselves after such a challenging start? How?
Yep, and that's a great question. So now we have some scholars that are looking at ways to re-educate Black boys. So that would first start with the re-education of Black men. So that would be, it would manifest itself in mental health classes or something that was shaped around mental health. So we first would have to identify individuals that would be willing to go through this process so that could trickle down. That would trickle down through individuals having conversations with their relatives, with their coworkers, with their friends. But first we would have to re-educate ourselves on not only what it is to be a man, but what it is to be a Black man, and to make sure that we can empower ourselves to feel good about who we are. So education, it would involve education.
Okay, Darrell, thank you so much for answering those questions. In the interest of time, we'll move on to the next presentation. If you have additional questions for Darrell, kindly put them in the chat room, and Darrell can respond to those questions as we go along.
Yep.
We'll move on to our next presentation by Mr. Alfonso Mayo. And Mr. Mayo will introduce himself and tell us about his presentation. Mr. Mayo, sir, you have the floor. Or you have the screen, I should say.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. So before I even get into my presentation, I want to share some sentiment. First and foremost, thank you to CVMA just for allowing this platform. And UOV, thank you guys so much for just embracing this opportunity and allowing us to grow through it. I don't want people to think that it hasn't been a challenging ride, because it's a pilot. But in any challenging circumstances, you can always learn something and grow. And so for my capstone, I decided to speak at the Student Success Summit. And as mentioned earlier, it was canceled due to COVID-19. And so I just wanted to share right up front, my presentation was supposed to be 45 minutes to an hour. And so given a 15-minute window, no matter what I do or present, I'm doing you guys a disservice. But I'm going to do the best that I can, because that's all I really have to offer. And just to make a comment on Darrell's presentation, man, thank you so much. I think in that space, the number one thing we have to do, especially as men, is embrace where we are mentally and work on ourselves holistically. So embracing wholeness, and that's a spiritual aspect to that, because who we are is really who the world taught us to be, but that's not the promise of God on our life. And so I just wanted to lift that up and just say thank you for sharing that presentation. And now I'll share my screen. Here we go. Let me know if you guys can see it. 3, 2, 1. So Dr. Cunningham, I took advantage of it, and I've already purchased your book, just to let you know.
Awesome.
So here we go. Come on, load, load, load. I mean, it was there before I purchased your book, Dr. Cunningham. So all right, here we go. I'm gonna try to reload it, and maybe it's because I have too many. There we go.
Ed, any suggestions that he might try?
No, it's not really much Ed could offer up. It's just the computer and probably my internet service. So it happens. As you can see, it's going kind of slow. All right, here we go. So there we go. The title of my presentation would have been, and it still is because I'm doing it now, integrating innovative and formal learning techniques with existing colleges courses. And some of you guys might be thinking, well, what do you mean integrating innovative informal learning? And so what my presentation is going to show is that, you know, there's some just things that we all know naturally works, especially in the realm of leadership, and especially in the realm of running organizations and just building relationship that we necessarily don't do while we're in college or in any sense of higher education, but could be beneficial for the students who attend college. Okay. There we go. So here I am. My name is Alfonso Mayo, for those of you who don't know me. However, all of my friends and family call me Mayo. So that's the suggested name if you embrace me as your brother, as your colleague, as your friend. And I am the father of 5 beautiful kids. I am a first-generation graduate of Stevenson University. I then attended Thompson University here. And my life work is really to serve and inspire youth. So much so that I'm trying to get my position changed from executive director to servant leader. And that's how I will present myself moving forward throughout the work and probably until my days on this earth end. And so before I even get into my presentation, I'm going to share just a video. Hopefully it works.
You can hold the Mayo on Rye, but you can't hold back the Mayo in Baltimore. Alfonso Mayo was born with a bad heart. His drug-addicted mom left him when he was 6 months old. He saw violence every day, couldn't read or write, and then he made a promise to make Baltimore better by mentoring. Alfonso Mayo beat grit, crime, and despair. He scored the biggest upset in life, his own. He should have been a statistic.
I could have been. I should have been.
And now it's all the young men who face similar circumstances in their life that benefit.
What Baltimore means to me is my life. It's where I'm from. It's who I am. It's a part of my story.
It's a story that really starts at his grandma's dying bedside when he made a promise to her to get an education and to help others. But first, he had to learn how to read.
He learned how to read through me, which was crazy. So I didn't know that until recently. I would just pretend like I was helping him with his homework. And as he would read, I would just pick up on the words that he would say slowly but surely. And then I would just go and practice behind them.
Unbelievable that 4 years ago, Alfonso Mayo kept his promise. He walked across the stage at Stevenson as a college graduate.
Mr. Mayo taught me what it is to be a man.
A man who graduated from high school and is now going to Morgan.
I was like one of the kids who was going to drop out for real, like high school.
But Mayo magic convinced William Fernandez to stay in high school, to graduate, and now he's heading off to college.
They have what they need inside of them. It's just no one realized their potential, and that's what we do.
What he did was form mentoring mentors.
He did like family problems, like if you down, figure out ways to bring you back up. A lot of those guys been given up on, written off, thrown away. And I don't think that's fair.
What I was like at first was, I was like off the chain, but then Mr. Mayo helped us straighten up. I got my grades up. My grades was like at a D minus, but now I'm at like a B plus to an A.
What do you want to do with your life?
I'm trying to get into a good college, specifically Maryland, Duke, or Florida State University.
Wow, that talk never seemed possible. Alfonso, what are you doing?
You know, over the years, I worked with 82 kids, 79 being male. Only 4 or 5 of them had dads in their home.
And now Alfonso is a dad in his own home. He married the love of his life, and just last week, Mason Mayo was born 6 pounds, 11 ounces, 19 and a half inches long.
You save people, you know that. I wouldn't call it that, but yeah.
So before I move on to my next slide, I think this is a good segue to tell you, look, I love kids. I knew at 13 that I would be working with youth in some capacity. I'm in the process of opening up a daycare center, but ultimately, everything that I do is built around relationship building, positive relationship building. Reverend Wyatt said something that stood out to me, and I wanted to interject, but I had to shift my spirit and place it back inside of me just so I could embrace his words. Everything that we have become, you should definitely share and put out into this world, because it's really what God blessed you with. But I also know that in my work, there's always going to be some challenges. So I just decided to create something that did not exist for me. I didn't come up under the best family circumstances. No one in my family had any formal education. No one even completed high school. And so for me, that's what I knew. But I knew that my imagination, what a family would look like, is what I decided to create. And so given that perspective, this presentation that's included. My way of thinking and creating something different for people who may have experienced what I have experienced, or even worse, for them to understand that all things are possible, and everything that happened, to us is really happening for us, and there's an opportunity to learn. And so I wanted us all to embrace that. And so objectives, we will explore questions centered around designing higher education with a culture that includes pipeline exposure through opportunities with student success in mind. Not saying that colleges don't already give those opportunities. However, I think that we should definitely flip the model upside down on its head, or even do away with the current model so that our students can have higher and better success. Reimagining today's higher education structure for tomorrow's promise. The intergenerational approach, which is something that we created back in 2015, shortly after the passing of Freddie Gray here in Baltimore. This design, this preparatory design, was created with my students, two of those young men you've seen in the video, Will and DeAndre. What is the long-term benefits of partnerships, and what can be done to improve the current structure of colleges? All right, so a little bit more about my work. This presentation is not about my work, but here we are, right? Mentor and Mentors, we were established in 2014. We became a nonprofit in 2015. And really, in essence, I won't go through the mission or vision just for time, but again, our ultimate goal is to teach positive relationship building, and we do that through an intergenerational model. Essentially, what I'm saying is, when we serve our students, they come to us as early as 6th grade, and we pretty much provide them with a loving mentoring relationship, a culture of mentoring. We are the soil, so we spoil them, essentially, so that they can understand what a positive relationship looks like. As they enter into high school, they go from what we consider legacy builders to mentor apprentice. And now it's their time to implement everything that they received through for the past 3 years of their life. Their senior years in high school, we turn them loose. They're full-blown mentors. And now they oversee an incoming student and a student that's entering into high school. A lot of things we do through triads. I will share this openly with you guys. I am very spiritual, and I believe in the Bible. And so we do things through triads because I follow like this Trinity model. In this Trinity model, we all know that it's the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. For us, our high schools are the Son, and they're tying things together. They're bringing the Father and the Holy Spirit together, but we just say legacy builders, mentor apprentice, and mentors. We know that their voice matters and that our high schoolers are to intercede and learn from those, because we're teaching them everything that they need to know, so that things like masculinity or negative masculinity will no longer exist. And so, yeah, it's a little bit about our work. All right, so why do people attend college? I actually have my presentation on full screen, so I can't see anything that you guys put in the chat. But I know that you know, because you guys are our leaders, why people usually attend college, right? And let's just offer it up. Most people attend college either because they're looking for better career opportunities, or they're looking to prove people wrong, or they're seeking a degree because they're following in someone's footsteps, and it's a legacy for their family. There's many different reasons for why we attend college. For me, it was because no one in my family ever chose to take that route. And I wanted to show my biological kids that it's possible if you want it. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to, right? We know that college is really becoming obsolete. We live in a technology age. You can become successful without even attending college. Now, for me, I don't teach my kids that because I want them to show that they can be dedicated to something for 4 years. But I also think that what they're dedicated to should also be dedicated to their growth. And that's really what we're here to talk about. So here's just some data, right? I know that everything we do should be data-based. I'm not really big on data, but this is the data that I found. 62% of US college graduates had a job that required a college degree. That's a lot, right? If you think about now, like even Walmart asks, do you attend college, right? And we know that the payment that most college graduates receive is subpar. It's not even anything that you can use to pay back your student loans or even move out the house. 27% of those college grads had a job that was firmly related to their major. So think about that. 27% of college students around the country had a job that tied to something that they went to school for. I can't tell you how many of my friends or colleagues that have doctorate degrees or master's degrees, and they're doing something totally different because their degree is not applicable to the current circumstances in which we face. So that was mind-boggling. And then 53.2 million former students said that they're unsure about the value of their degree. This is not me. This is all database, and I got the resources so you can fact check. But think about it, 53 million people around the country, their degree is not valuable. They're not just talking about their degree, they're actually talking about the colleges in which they attended, because the truth is, you had to go to college to get that piece of paper. So if you're unsatisfied, you know that, hey, this didn't add any value to my life. You know that it was a waste of time. So how can we change that up? That's what we should be thinking about, right? Let's think about the unemployment rate. I'm sure you guys know people right now that have a degree, that went to college, maybe, it doesn't matter, Howard, Harvard, none of that matters. That's unemployed right now, because whatever opportunity that they were seeking maybe didn't apply to what they went to school for, or the thing that God created them to be necessarily don't fit into the degree that they was aiming for. And so they kind of went the way of the world. Let me get this degree so I can prove a point, so this can be what I show people. But the proof is not really in the paper. The proof is really in the relationships. And so this just talked about the unemployment rate for college graduates, which is a bit high. And so what's more important? This is a question that you guys can think about. What's more important when you go to college? Is it really the classes, or is it the networks that you create while you are sitting in classes? You know, I'm a firm believer that yes, class is important, especially for someone like me who struggled with academics and education. But I also learned that I can learn a lot more from people doing what I hope to one day do than I can do just from all theory. Classes are usually all theory, right? And then by the time you get into your internship or your practicum, you're usually at the wit's end of, you know, college and about to get your degree. And so if you made the wrong choice, you've already sacrificed 2 to 3 years of your college experience. And so really, what is more important? On one side, you see a guy getting it in. He's in class, he looked focused. I can tell you right now, it looked like he about to ace. And then on the other side, you see a group of people doing the same thing, but the joy is a little different, right? They're learning together, and in learning together, they're really building relationship. And what happens when you walk through those college doors a lot of times is you can pick up on people's strengths and weaknesses as you work together over time. And so I have an idea. Doesn't mean it's right. It's not scientifically proven. I don't have any data behind it. And so I wanted to make that clear. It's just an idea. So the intergenerational near-to-peer model. Yep, we use it for mentoring, but I also know that they use this model in every other aspect of careers or for different professions. For example, when you are a doctor, you are an understudy of a senior doctor. They technically become your mentor. You build a relationship, you learn everything you possibly can from them, and then you embark on your journey. They use this same methodology in the military, right? Like you are an understudy of someone. You are seen as a younger version of them, and they're helping groom you and grow you. And I'm not sure why we don't use this in college. Maybe because we're so stuck in the old way, the way of the past. Go to college, do your work, do these papers, do these exams, get an A. But an A doesn't mean anything to an employer, because usually when you go for your interview, they're not really impressed with your A's. They're impressed with your skill set, which is why they ask questions like, do you have any experience? And you can't say you have experience when you've been grinding in class for 4 years versus actually being in the field of study. So why aren't we taking like this intergenerational model, seeing what students really want to do and placing them under mentors early on in their college profession, and then allowing them to work over the summers or maybe the winter, wherever they deem fit, under someone at an actual business, a place, and growing in what they want to do versus, hey, I sit in class, I do my English work, or whatever it is that the structure is. Why can't we change that? Why shouldn't we change that? Because we all know that relationships are important. And if you want to get really theological or technical, Before there was anything, it was already relationship. And if you're spiritual like me, then you know that relationship means the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And then there was like, it wasn't work first. So why are we putting all our energy and effort into doing all these work, doing all these rigorous tests, and then getting towards the end and realizing that this is either not what I want to do, or there's not any jobs available for me, versus me already being placed with someone somehow, or some formal partnership or informal partnership, doing exactly what God has called me to do, so that that mentor, or however you want to deem them, can help groom me. I'll give you an example. When I first met Sean Dove, I knew that everything he is what I wanted to be. Everything that he does is what I want to offer in my own way, my own unique way. And then I started just, following his work and getting on the newsletters. And at some point in time, I knew we would cross paths. And boom, we finally crossed paths. And now we exchange information that I could never get in a college book. I can never get in a college class. And I feel that where I am as a leader now looks totally different than where I was a leader 3 years ago, or even when I was in college, or even when that video was published. Like, that's different. So much so that when I knew about our capstone, I knew that I wanted to speak because that's just who I am. But then I said, well, what would Sean do? I know he probably would dive deeper. And so I'm also doing a research paper, a descriptive study that I'm going to publish here. And then I'm also doing an objective data, right? Because leaders always take on them challenges. And this is what I learned from him through direct text or a call or FaceTime or whatever. Leaders always take on those challenges that they know they're not burdens, they're learning lessons, right? They're not afraid to fail, because he said to me that you are the cavalry that everyone is waiting for. Like, don't expect other people to save you. I didn't get that out of a book sitting in my class, and I went to Johns Hopkins. So I know that this model will work under any circumstances. And yes, it is Baltimore, homegrown here, right? But you can take this model anywhere. I can teach anybody this model under any school, under any higher education, and any realm of work. I can teach this to people because this is really what was taught to all of us from the beginning. And I'm just making it more applicable. I won't even get into this because this is just really talking about the different stages, right? Like our middle schoolers, we call them legacy builders and all of that, all of which I've already explained. So, okay. So if we think about just the data again, we want to think about like the success, right? Like, well, who's having the most success once they graduate? And this data is just pretty much talking about career preparedness. And for me, when I looked at it, and this is just survey based, so surveys can be subjective, but males felt like they were extremely prepared for their careers. However, when you look at the industry, a lot of times males are underemployed. And so, yeah, they feel prepared, but really what are they prepared for? Especially now that we had a crisis, let's just be real. People are getting laid off left and right. And a lot of times what happens is now you have to do something new, but how do you do something new when you don't have the skill set? I would bet everything in my bank account is not much. I don't make much, but it's okay for somebody that's like me. I would bet that if you had a relationship and you could reach out to somebody that knew you, trust you, knew your work value, that you can get another job. And then you can learn and build your way up in that place. And so we have to be realistic with ourselves. Colleges talk about network, but they really have you do rigorous coursework. The intergenerational model means, hey, how do I intercede for my student and allow them to learn from a leader? Build a relationship with someone that's doing what they're doing. And then, yes, of course, you need coursework. We get it. We need tests. But we should definitely focus more on the relationship aspect and building versus the rigorous work that students are doing every day. Because you've seen what I've seen. Over 53 million people feel like what they did is not valuable. So I just wonder what that would look like. And here's just some of the resources that I pulled that information from. I don't want you guys to think I know it all, because I don't, but I do know something about positive relationship building and how that can change the trajectory of anyone's life. Yes, there's other tools and mechanisms that you need in place. However, the relationship, once it becomes more solid and people can pick up on your tendencies, your weakness, they can then groom you, encourage you, coach you, develop you into the person that you want to be. And I feel like colleges are continuously failing our students by making them believe that just because you have a degree, you have an opportunity, or just because you have a degree, that you're better or you'll have a higher chance. And in some cases, yes, but in a lot of cases, no. If you are someone that attended college and you're like me, you're thinking now to yourself, well, what if I would have met Sean 10 years ago before I went to college? Would I needed that degree? Maybe, maybe not. Because once you have it, you have it. And we know that those pieces of paper, just like this piece of paper, it just costs a lot of money. And when you come from poverty like myself, sometimes, or not even sometimes, I would have much rather be connected to a leader, someone that could help me groom and develop my skills early versus go to college. But I tell my kids, you should go to college. All right, and that's all I got for you guys.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Mayo. Thank you for such a very inspirational presentation. We are running a little bit behind schedule, so we have time for just one question. One very quick, short question. It requires a short response.
Dr. Austin?
I have a question. All right. Hi, thank you, Alfonso, for your presentation and your inspirational story. As an educator, often I hear in the national dialogue, very often people say college isn't for everyone, right? However, the people who typically say it, and of course I work at the state level, typically have their kids in college. And your presentation ended with something very similar, right? You don't have to go, but I want my kids to go. Tell, like, why is it different for your kid?
Oh, no. I think it's the same for everyone's kid. The reason I want my kids to go is because I want them to learn discipline. I know that college teaches you to be disciplined for a certain amount of time, and that's nothing you can duplicate at home. And so when you get that freedom, I'm sure you know this as well, when you finally get that freedom, every lesson that your parent has taught you is now applicable. And so how do you operate in that system? I know that I'm teaching my kids lifelong lessons, but if they're always in my nest, I never get a chance to see how they're applying those lifelong lessons. And for me, college gave me that opportunity to say, hey, my grandmother taught me this, my granddad taught me this, and this is how I'm applying it and building, relationships or doing my coursework. And so that's where I think college really comes in. And so that's why I would suggest everyone go to college, honestly, but I do think there's some frameworks that we should change so that we can see a higher success rate and a higher employment rate.
Thank you, sir. Outstanding.
Mia, thank you for your presentation. If you don't mind, could you write your email address in the chat, please? So if others have questions, they could email you directly and you can respond to their questions.
Yes,
and in the interest of time, we are going to move on. It's now 8 o'clock. And just so everybody is aware, we have one more presentation from Judy Touzin. And so we might run to about 8:20. So I hope you can hang around with us for this very last presentation, because I promise you, you will not want to miss her presentation. So Judy, I'm going to pass it on to you to introduce yourself and give your presentation, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. It almost sounded like a hurricane out here a couple of minutes ago, so if it starts again, then you'll just let me know if you can't hear me anymore. All right, so my name is Judy Touzin. I have been an educator for the past 17 years, so a teacher, principal, trainer for principals. In 2016, I wrote a book called Exceptional Black Men Leading, Living, and Loving, and that led me to start and lead the Exceptional Project. I want to start by giving you some background context about that work so that you can have some context to be able to hang my capstone work around. And so the genesis for me all started back in 2014, as I imagine everybody on the call knows. On August 9th, Mike Brown tragically lost his life, was killed in Ferguson, Missouri by Officer Darrell Wilson. And then from August through November of that same year, speculation mounted, tensions mounted, the Black Lives Matter movement grew across this nation and across the world while we waited to see what the grand jury decision would be regarding his indictment. And then on November 23rd, 2014, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, along with Michael Eric Dyson, appeared on Meet the Press to debate the pending decision that the nation was waiting for. And so I'm going to play this quickly so that you can see and hear just a bit of what I saw and heard that Sunday morning.
By the way, but the fact is, I find it very disappointing that you're not discussing the fact that 93% of blacks in America are killed by other blacks. We're talking about the exception here.
Well, look, first of all, go ahead, Michael. No, but this is about a trust issue.
We are talking about the significant exception. 93% of blacks are killed by other blacks.
Let me respond to that.
I would like to see the attention. I'd like to.
That went on for about another 2 or 3 minutes, with Giuliani growing increasingly just disrespectful, the comments hurtful, but I got stuck at the point of that comment. We're talking about the exception here. We're talking about the significant exception. And for me, what bothered me the most was thinking about all of the men in my life, both personally, professionally, and just societally, and knowing that there was no way in the world that we could dismiss their loss of life as mere exceptions, as if they were just numbers and not people who lack names. And so my professional why was grounded in my work, as I said, in education for the past 17 years. I was able to start an after-school program with my colleagues here who aren't all Black, right? So when we talk about allies and people who believe in the beauty of our children, who don't necessarily look like them, this is back in 2006, and you'll see the circle around a young man. That was Joshua. That's a picture of him again at the bottom. He was in 3rd grade, had repeated 1st grade, had repeated 2nd grade, and I was blessed to be his 3rd grade teacher. The other young men in the picture were a part of the elementary school where I taught, and so I knew for sure that none of them could count as an exception. My personal why, every single man you see in this picture is someone that I have either worked with, somebody who's either my brother, my cousin, a friend of the family. And these 4 here that are highlighted are my 4 nephews, right? And so when I think of an exception, I see their exceptionality, right? I see all the value that they have to give to this world. They're not here by accident. They're not just numbers, they're people. They have value, and we need to honor and amplify that. And then on a social level, I just think of all of the men. Yes, we have people who are not doing their best or not living into their exceptionality, right? But I know countless men who are every day living into their kingship, who are incredible fathers, like the fathers on this call, right? Who do everything they can to be there and to be an example for their children. And just the giftedness that they possess, whether it's artists, photography, music, professorships, in society, there are countless Black men and boys who are incredibly exceptional. And so in 2016, as a result of first that anger, that frustration, that disappointment, worked with a lot of the men that you saw in that image to release a book called Exceptional Black Men Leading, Living, and Loving, where we shared the story and the images of 32 Black men and boys, and they each shared the ways that they lead, live, thank you, Sean, the ways that they lead, live, and love in their community. And so the mission and vision of the Exceptional Project is to amplify the beauty, the brilliance, and the humanity of Black men and boys. When I think about kind of umbrella terms, it was all about narrative change, right? Like the world might see you as an exception. And that's why the AL was added in a different color to be able to show that in spite of what the world might be saying, in spite of what ignorant people like Giuliani, or who were operating in a spirit of ignorance, I'll say, so as not to name call, but in spite of people who may operate in a spirit of ignorance, we absolutely have the power to define or redefine ourselves when their definitions don't suit us. And so that was the purpose from there. And then in January 2017, decided to go on a speaking tour, right? Different cities to be able to just share the message of the Exceptional Project, but more importantly, create space for Black men and boys to share their stories and their experiences and build community with each other. And so we started with an exhibit at Bank Street that year. We then ended up kicking off our speaking tour in Philadelphia. I think the power for me of the work was amplified in this space where we had a young man in the conversation who was doing work in like South Philly, and then another gentleman on the panel in the conversation doing work in West Philadelphia. And they didn't really know each other and about each other's work, right? So if you can imagine a family walking into the South Philly location saying, I'd really love for you to be able to support my child, but I live in X, I live on this street, which falls out of the zone or whatever that the South Philly organization could support, it is imperative for him to know and be able to say, but based on where you live, I know this brother or this woman or this organization that would be able to meet your needs, right? And so I was able to see the power of that community building, that synergy by doing this work with the beautiful men that I was blessed to meet in Philly. We ended up going to the Bishop Walker School in DC, where we were able to meet with, it was an all boys school, and be able to talk to them about the ways that they lead, live, and love, and their beauty and their brilliance and their humanity. And then in the course of, over the course of 2017, we ended up doing 3 or 4 conferences. And this is a picture of the men that spoke at the Coalition of Schools Educating Boys of Color Conference in Austin, Texas of that same year. And so in 2017, this final one is one of my favorite. This was at a parent summit in Galloway, New Jersey. And I think the reason that I love it so much is because you can see, I feel like you can feel the joy, the humanity, the exceptionality of the men in this picture. And so over the course of that year, we went to 11 cities and did about 17 different conversations, all about the Exceptional Project, but more importantly, the message, the beauty, the brilliance, and the humanity of Black men and boys, and the ways that we can work to counter or change the narrative that is often promoted and projected. And so in end of 2017 into 2018, with the help of Sean Dove and the Campaign for Black Male Achievement and the support of COSBAC in partnership with MAID Transitional Services and CUNY BMI, we were able to launch a partnership called Exceptional NYC. And what that did is it allowed us to work with several schools, over 11 schools, mostly in District 18 as a part of their MBK work and initiative. And so this just shows some of those conversations with the young men who were a part of the work. We were able to take them. One of the things I deeply believe in is in the power of exposure. If you don't know a thing, you might not then know that that thing is possible for you. And so believing deeply that in order to help change the narrative, we've got to expose you to different people, places, and ideas that allow you to dream bigger. And I often intentionally use the word bigger as opposed to better, because I never want to unintentionally denigrate where our kids come from, their families, the way they speak, the way they show up. I want to honor that. I just want them to know that there is more and that the choice is theirs in terms of what they choose to pursue and what they choose to become. And so that's all the background context about the Exceptional Project and what we were able to do in the first couple of years, having done the work. But it was still incredibly important to me when I saw the flyer come out for the Leaders in Residence Fellowship to be a part of that work for a couple of reasons. One, I was just looking for community. I wanted to be with fellow practitioners doing the work, trying their best to figure it out for the sake of the children, the young men that we serve. I also wanted time to reflect on my efforts, what I'm bringing to the work, what's effective about it, what's ineffective, or unintentionally strengthening some of the negativity. I wanted to be able to grow as an individual and also as a person who says that I am a part of the Black male achievement space. I wanted to be more grounded in the work that is happening across the field and not just my limited lane of the work. And then finally wanted to increase impact, right? It's one thing to have a bunch of conversations, go across the country and have feel-good moments. And as Darrell Langley, who is also part of the fellowship, would say, optics, that's great. Optics they're affirming, but what about the outcomes, right? Like, what is the impact of the work that you're doing? And so those are the things that drew me to the fellowship. And so when given the option, I decided to focus my capstone on organizational development. It was most aligned to my rationale for joining. I also wanted to be able to explore various organizations engaged in direct service work to see what elements most resonated and could be included as a part of the Exceptional Project curriculum or curricular framework, and what didn't resonate and would not necessarily need to become a part of the Exceptional Project. So my rationale for selecting the curriculum work was twofold. One, like I said, we had been working with several schools, 11 schools over the course of a year or two, and working a full-time job that was maybe 60, 70 hours a week, plus doing this work and partnering with the schools. I felt that the work was falling short of the bar of excellence that I try to hold myself to in my 9-to-5 work, and didn't feel like the Exceptional Project and the schools and the young men that we were working with should get anything less than that. So really wanted to be able to step away, to regroup, refine, and then go back with something that was excellent. And then the second piece was feeling like I started with narrative change. That was my clear aim and target. And somehow in conversations, in getting funded and supported, it was veering towards personal development. And it's not that I think that there's anything inherently problematic about soft skills, executive functioning, how we speak, our writing skills, all those things. I think they're fine and good, but that can unintentionally create the message as if we have to fix something, that the conditions, that the problems, that the challenges that the young men and boys that we were working and were facing were somehow of their own doing, as opposed to the fact that with changing the narrative, it's because something's broken about the system. And in personal development, it's as if something is broken about you and you have to fix yourself to have a better experience in the system. And everything that we know tells us that that is not the case. It doesn't matter if you're degreed or not degreed, if you are employed or unemployed, if you're walking around in a Black body, you can still experience the same negativity, racism, and cruelty. And so I did not want to continue to do work that felt like it was not truly aligned to the purpose that I set out with the narrative change. And so the plan of action worked to draft a series of questions and got rounds of feedback from the cohort of fellows as well as the leaders of the fellowship. And then worked with brainstorming with folks. Who should I talk to, right? Who is leading really high quality direct service work with young men? And what do their programs look like? What do their experiences look like? Is there a selection process? What's the timeline? And how do they really work around narrative change? Not just let me help make you a better person through personal development so that you can fare better in a broken and unjust society. My progress to date, is not that much when it comes to those initial questions and people. I was able to speak to Atreus Good, Darrell Langley, and Russell Harris to be able to learn more about the work that they're leading. Part of the challenge is just navigating reality, right? The COVID pandemic that set in right after, right? We met in late January and we're supposed to really gain traction February, March. And then it just I didn't feel comfortable reaching out to people for conversations and interviews about the work when I couldn't say for sure if they were navigating the loss of employment, navigating the loss of a loved one. It felt almost tone deaf. And so definitely pulled back. And then just personally, with the tragic deaths that we all know, right? Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the current movement, it felt important, but not as urgent or germane to the moment. And so for my own, honestly, just retreating inward and just doing some more reflection and trying to figure out what is my role in the work and how can I support the efforts, I ended up really focusing a lot on that. That said, there were a couple of things that I was able to kind of revive throughout this process. And so I started something called Exceptional Young Man of the Week when I was working with the schools in District 18. And so for about the past month, I've essentially restarted that. And so everyone you see pictured here has been shared on our either Facebook or Instagram page, and we simply just share who they are and what makes them exceptional. And it's really powerful when we're able to get the messages in their own words or in the words of their loved ones and their family members who speak to the value that they add. The second thing that I've been working on with a friend and a woman who's very invested in the conversation is something called a dialogue. And so the goal is to have a space similar to this conversation where people are able to just meet and talk and ask the questions and understand what's going on. I've asked lots of people, like, what do you know about Campaign Zero, for example? What do you know about the Center for Policing Equity? And the reality is people are raising families, taking care of children, trying to keep jobs. And so while we care, we don't always know what to do or how to enact that care or have the time or make the time to learn more, to be able to do more. And so the spirit of this is to be able to create a space that becomes predictable, where we're able to share information and be able to inspire action. And so in terms of the future of the Exceptional Project, I think short term is just to stay consistent. Is to be able to make sure that a year from now, I can look and see that there are 52 images and stories that have been shared about exceptional young men, and that we're able to say that we've been able to have 12 conversations. And then in the long term, I'm still figuring it out. So I'm very open to additional feedback and just thought partnership from those of you who are on the call. It could look like developing resources to support others invested in narrative change. It could look like developing a curricular framework for youth with opportunity youth. I recently started a program that has me reading a lot about the juvenile justice system and the quality of education in that space, and the students that are kind of pushed out of schools and end up there, and thinking about what it might look like to develop resources that support them. And so that is where I am. That is my capstone. So I just have a couple more slides of just honestly just gratitude for the most part. And so people will always say, right, the work that you're doing, you're standing on the shoulders of giants, and that is 100% true, maybe 1,000% true when I think about the Exceptional Project and anger and a dream and a book and driving around in my car with everything, to the people that I've been blessed to meet and be affirmed by and encouraged by. So for sure, Ron Walker, who if I had not been blessed to meet him, I would not have been blessed to meet Sean Dove. And if I had not been blessed to meet Sean Dove, I would not have been blessed to meet Anthony Smith, all who created space and opportunity for me to be able to figure it out, but not to stay in paralysis while figuring it out. And I have been so deeply blessed and impacted by not just their affirmation, but the way they lead and do the work. And so you find a lot of people who they don't share because they feel like there isn't enough for everybody to be able to do the work, and people want to shine and people want to walk and live in limelight. And Ron Walker, Sean, everybody, they just open their little black book of everybody to know in every city, in every context, that you can build a relationship with. And so I became a true believer in the work of the campaign because of how much the focus was on creating community among people who are just trying to do the work and do better for our young men. The people, the men and boys of the Exceptional Project, I'll often say, I kind of wrote a book, but I actually really just curated stories. And so there would be no Exceptional Project without the beautiful Black men and boys who I'm blessed to know and partner with in different capacities. And so I thank them. And then the LIR community. It has been an interesting and challenging, even especially the way we had to finish a year and a half. But I am truly blessed and grateful for this opportunity, for the people that I've met, both for my cohort mates as well as the leadership of the University of Louisville. So thank you to everybody for the opportunity. And then I leave you with my commitment and my encouragement. It is the tagline of the Exceptional Project, but a commitment to lead by example, to do more. I've been saying recently, I will preach by practicing, meaning I don't have to say that much, but I will do my best to walk and be what I believe. Live life to the fullest. Everybody probably has their own circumstance or challenge or thing that would has the potential to compromise their ability to live life to the fullest. And I believe deeply it is a choice, right? We don't get to choose our circumstances, but we absolutely have the power to choose our responses. So I choose to live life to the fullest and to live without condition. I think the world is filled with enough negativity, hate, disregard for humanity, right? At the end of the day, if you have breath in your body, then you are born worthy. And I see it as a charge to love every single human being, whether I agree with you or not in your lifestyle choices, whether I look like you or not. And I just pray to continue to be blessed to encounter people who feel similarly, that we are here to live without condition. And that is it. Thank you. I tried, Dr. Cunningham.
Judy, that was exceptional. Thank you so much for such an inspirational, thought-provoking presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now I open up for a few questions. It's according to my watch, it's 8:21. If you don't mind, hang around for a few more minutes, please, as we pose a few questions to Judy or give her feedback. So the floor is now open for questions or comments.
Dr. Cunningham, this is Val. I don't have any questions, but I must say, you know, Judy, Darrell, Mayo, I've only been with the campaign since October 8, 2018. And you, along with all the other wonderful fellows that I've met through this ride, has been amazing. So I just want to applaud all three of you for these unbelievable presentations. You know, my heart is just so full right now. My eyes are full with water and so much, you know, that I want to say, but I don't want to overextend myself. But, you know, my hat goes off to all three of you. I love you. Congratulations on an amazing capstone presentation. And I cannot wait to see how you guys are going to take the world by storm.
Valerie, thank you for sharing that, by the way. I am fortunate. I think of the Louisville team, I had the best job because I work with all of these people throughout the past few months. So I was able to learn and hear about their projects. And each time I spoke to them, I was inspired. So of the Louisville team members, I had the best job of all.
Dr. Cunningham, Ralph here, I just want to join both you and Valerie in saying congratulations to Darrell, to Mayo, and to Judy. Simply outstanding. And like Valerie, my heart has been encouraged this evening for the work that you guys have done, the work that you're doing, and the work that you will do going forward in the future. So thank you so much, and may God continue to bless and lift you up in the days ahead.
Judy, thank you, Dr. Fitzpatrick. Judy has put her email in the chat, so if you want to send her questions directly, please feel free to do so. Okay, any other questions from anyone before we finish off? Okay, Melvin, you have a question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. First, this has been just a wonderful display of Black boy joy and Black girl magic. And so I am, when I say you have blessed my soul, you have blessed my soul. Judy, the question is, with your capstone project, is this something that you have already or you are planning to codify in a type of organization, corporation, whether it be for-profit or 501c3?
You must have read my paper because that was one of the main reasons why I joined the fellowship. So by training and profession, I'm a teacher principal, right? And so I started an LLC a couple of years back called Be Exceptional Coaching and Consulting for instructional leadership. And so because I have that LLC, it's kind of been like how I've covered the work of the Exceptional Project. And so in terms of it being codified, it's a thing, right? The Exceptional Project is a thing. There's a whole website just for the Exceptional Project, not the coaching and consulting, because I essentially put that to the side and I'm walking in what I feel is my life's work. But I have not done the formal thing of LLC or does nonprofit for the Exceptional Project. So if you have insight about that, Melvin, I would be deeply grateful for the thought partnership.
Actually, I do, and this is for all the capstone persons. At the Hope Institute, one of the pillars, one of the departments is business consulting and development. And so, you know, I've kind of been all over many things because I chose not to believe the lie that when they said a master of many
trades, jack of many trades, but master of none. You can actually be a master of every trade. That's how great and grand and big our gifts are. And so definitely I will send you my info, but definitely would love to support you in doing that, and can help you try to understand the differences between doing like a B Corp or a 501c3. But I think all of your, one of the things we do is we search for resources for Black people and Black projects and projects that empower the Black agenda. And so I think definitely this is the case. I think there's a lot of money that you can get, even right now in the midst of this COVID, that I think there's so much money there that our people just are not exposed to or have the connections to. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Any other final question? It's now 8:27, and a month of time and people's commitments in life. Again, if you have additional questions, Judy's email is in the chat room. Please shoot her a question via email. As you can see tonight, we had 3 exceptional projects, and those are just simply the beginning. Tomorrow, we have 3 additional exceptional projects in the book, so I hope you guys can join us tomorrow, same time from 6 to 8 p.m. Hopefully, we'll finish by 8 p.m. for 3 additional outstanding presentations. I want to thank you all. I want to thank the 3 presenters today for a great job in presenting their work, and to all of you for spending extra minutes with us tonight. So thank you all very much. And Ed Cortez, Mitchell Payne, I turn it back to you both.
All right, thank you, Henry. Just to reiterate what you said, we look forward to everyone joining us again in this space tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, to help us to continue this upward trajectory as we close out the LRR program. So without any further ado, everyone have a good, safe evening. I see on my streaming system here that Charles Evers has died. So another third titan in terms of Black leadership has passed away in a very few days. So for those of us that wonder what next steps can be, where voids can be filled, where we can step in for leadership, they're happening on before our very eyes within a few days' time. So hopefully the inspiration will be lit and everyone will carry on onward. So with that being said, we're going to close out this evening with closing celebration. See you tomorrow.